Hello, I'm the comedian and writer and music fan Stewart Lee, and because there's this thing, The Dig, East London, I'm going to cycle around East London all day today, visit 7 record shops and loads of historic music sites on my bike and talk you through it to show you what a brilliant music day out you can have in East London. This is the first place we're going to. This is Flashback East, part of the vast 3-record shop Flashback empire, so we're going to go in here and see what we can find. They've got a brilliant set of all these old fanzines, bucket full of brains. When I was a kid and there was no internet, you couldn't find out what anything was, and you had to buy things like this and hold on to them. And I had the whole set pretty much of these, and they changed my life in telling me all about garage punk and psychedelia and weird old country rock. Got an Archie Shepp record in there. Like a lot of jazz, you find that it sort of answers a question that you didn't know you had. It kind of tricks people that it's a normal jazz album, and then gradually it gets more and more experimental. That's the kind of thing that I spend a lot of time thinking about. How can you lay weird stuff on people without them realising? The first Bad Manners album, they were a sort of comedy ska R&B band, and I had this when I was about 12 and then got rid of it when I became embarrassed by owning it. And I think that I was a stuck-up idiot. Flashback is great, and there's a whole cellar full of reggae, and they have loads of great jazz as well. Cheers. Thank you for behaving in such a normal, natural way. Okay, so that was £24 spent in Flashback. We're going off to the next shop, which is Stranger Than Paradise, but on the way, we're going to make 2 historical rock and roll stops to show you what a great fun day out you can have in East London, buying records and looking at enormously culturally significant places. So I'll see you at the next stop. 53 Hackney Road, the Taste of China, which is where Birmingham post-punk pioneer Robert Lloyd of the Nightingales and the Prefects lived while he was working as a postman in between the collapse of his solo career in the late 80s and restarting the Nightingales in about 2004 there. Michael Cumming, the brass eye director, and I made a documentary about Rob Lloyd's life. There's the soundtrack on Fire Records, King Rocker, and we did a lot of filming around here because this area was very important to him when he was kind of trying to work out what to do with his life. How did you end up living here at the Taste of China in the East London?
I don't know, it was definitely, it was like at the lowest ebb.
He used to live up there, but at night you could always get a can of lager any time from that kebab shop there. And they got to know him pretty well, I think. The edge of Borough Market here. This is where people that have really well-paid jobs they hate in the city come at the weekend and wander around buying ciabattas and things to give themselves the impression that they're living a fulfilling life. Okay, we're heading down into Beck Road now, which was the 70s home of Genesis's Peerage experimental noise band Throbbing Gristle. And even on a lovely sunny day, I'm sure it will have the usual air of horrible menace. This, 50 Beck Road, was the home of Throbbing Gristle. And as you can see, they've hammered a Throbbing Gristle logo. About 15 years ago, loads of comedians and actors lived here, including the liberal satirist Rosie Holt, Harry Melling, who went on to play Dudley Dursley in the Harry Potter films, and Sam Reed, who's currently the vampire Lestat in the Interview with the Vampire TV show. So it's difficult to know which collection of people did more damage to human culture out of those 2 groups of people. Rosie Holt is currently appearing in Churchill's Urinal at the King's Head Theatre, Islington. This is really great for new vinyl. They always have the sale bin down there. You can get a nice coffee. Sometimes there's DJs. So I'm gonna look through. Basically, I'm gonna have to spend at the limit of my per shop ratio here because it's pretty much all new. It's between getting this Townes Van Zandt selection of Far Cry from Dead or this double album of the best of Junior Kimbrough Blues Bloke. But I think I'm gonna go with that. But it's too tempting. I mean, there's loads of. All this stuff's great. I'd love to pick up that as well one day. That's a brilliant album, the new Heads album. Anyway.
What's next on the trip?
Nice.
I think we're
vinyl delivery service. We're going to vinyl delivery service, right? Which I don't mind telling you. I've always been too intimidated to go into it. If I go in there and I make the wrong choice, secretly people will be sniggering and sneering at me after I leave. But they've got some fantastic stuff online. Is that trio album, but in a Japanese edition of it?
Yeah.
Wow. So is that the one that's normally got a yellow cover?
That's
Okay, that was recorded at 572 Kingsland Road in a studio there. We're going to go and have a look at that studio later. Okay, this is a great album by the Rationals, who are from Detroit, contemporaries of the MC5 and the Stooges, with Scott Morgan. That is a really good record. If I had unlimited funds, I'd get that. Here's a nice little curio. This is Shusha Guppy. You might know her son, Darius Guppy, who was the convicted fraudster that Boris Johnson was recorded having a phone call with him where he said he would help him hire people to beat up a journalist. And even though that was recorded, it still didn't stick to Boris Johnson, and he carried on being Prime Minister for ages. Sonny Murray on the drums. He offered me a toke on his joint once while he was setting up a drum kit on the Seven Sisters Road when I had to interview him for something. Him setting up the drum kit was as much a part of the show as him playing it, but no one got to see that bit. Ah, that's what I was looking for. Sort of Sonny Rollins outtakes. So brilliant, I've got that. When I was a kid, I was in bed one night. I was about 13. I don't know why, I was listening to Radio 3. This jazz show came on. I didn't know what jazz was. And they played the whole of side 2 of Freedom Suite by Sonny Rollins. One of the most amazing things I'd ever heard. I really like jazz now. I'll get another jazz record out. And I got out a Grover Washington album. Thought it was one of the most awful things I'd ever heard. And I never listened to any jazz again for about 5 years. Now I listen to it all the time, after a bad start. Okay, we're done. Dexter Gordon in Switzerland album. Right, let's get these. So look, that was vinyl delivery service. I've been scared of it before, because look, it looks like you'd have to be really clever and sophisticated to go in there or buy compulsory wine. But it was really great, and there's loads of the stuff was really cheap, and the stuff that wasn't was probably deservedly expensive. There was no need to be intimidated by it. It was great. When Robert Lloyd was a postman, he used to deliver Julie Christie's mail here. Julie Christie, the actress from Dr. Zhivago, and she used to be playing the piano, apparently.
Julie Christie used to live in one of these flats here, and she was always playing the piano.
And he used to sing along to her, and she would shout, "Leave the post somewhere, postie." Anyway, I wrote to her and asked her if she would be in this film about her postman. I was told by her agent that it wasn't the sort of thing she would do, and I ran into her in a literary festival in Wales, and she said she would have loved to have done it. So don't trust the agents, that's what I'm saying. The post-punk 60s crossover is Robert Lloyd delivered Julie Christie's mail here, and as Yola Tango fans will know, Julie Christie, the rumours are true. About the second ever interview I did was with Yola Tango at the Columbia Hotel, and I kept them for about 2 hours asking the worst questions, and they were so patient that when I finally met them as an adult, I asked them if they remembered it and apologised. At one point, the bassist James McNew, I remember he said, "Where are you getting these questions from?" Which is an indication of a man that really wants the whole process to stop. But since then, they've asked me to open for them in their, they do a New York run of charity shows every Christmas, and they've asked me to go over, and they get comics to open for them and do that, but I've not been able to. So it's a weird process in life to go from absolutely wasting someone's time and annoying them to having them wanting to open for you. Things work out in the end, don't they? We've cycled up to Kingsland Records, 502 Kingsland High Road. This is deadly for me because this is really near where I live, so I often pop in here on the way home, and I shouldn't. And I think, oh, there won't be anything there. There's always some repress of an old dub album for 10 quid or something. So it's always worth a look. Hello. When this first opened, I thought, oh, it's really like serious place, like you've really got to know your stuff. But actually, there's loads of different kinds of things here. You know them?
Yeah.
From here?
Yeah.
Somewhere you've got the dub remix of their first album.
Yes.
Because that, I kind of thought it'd be really good to get that here because of the local connection. I look like I'm really on top of this genre, don't I? I really look like I know what I'm talking about. And I don't. One day I will buy these when I've got excessive amounts of money. These brilliant compilation albums of jazz from Japan. We were talking about this before. I think it's kind of changed the consumption of jazz listeners in Britain. It seemed to really turn people on to a whole load of stuff that they didn't know about before. Okay, I heard this somewhere, right? Golden Hen, Tenor Saw. This is like the start of dancehall, is it?
To a degree.
Yeah. But it's also got his foot back in old reggae as well.
I think it plays aside. It's sort of that transition period where you were coming out of sort of acoustic, going into digi.
Look at this guy, he knows loads of stuff as well. I've been looking at this for years. I really like the Lee Hazelwood, Nancy Sinatra songs. That's a good pair of things here in Dalston. A 12-inch from the dawn of dancehall and a reissue of a Nancy Sinatra album tarted up for 58-year-old men. Perfect. Cheers.
Pleasure.
Thanks a lot. This is another historical stop we're making on the way to the next record shop, 570 Kingsland High Road. We've not come to see Anytime Fitness. We're here because this was the site of Tangerine Studios throughout the 70s. Rory Gallagher recorded there, Acid Folk stars Jan Dukes de Grey, Caravan, East of Eden, the Exeter University-based theatrical psychedelic troupe Principal Edward's Magic Theatre. This was recorded here. Orgasm by Head Machine, which is great from the sort of fading days of psychedelia as it moves into the beginning of of ugly hard rock. And then this, John Sermon and the brilliant Barry Phillips, the trio. Weirdly, earlier on we saw a Japanese pressing of this album in vinyl delivery service, so it's kind of haunting us, but that was recorded here. This was quite a big deal in its day, and it was certainly a lot more culturally useful than a fitness centre, even though it is important to look after yourself, which is why we're cycling everywhere today. Just because we're in the area, I thought we should stop, because we're going past Venue of Legends, Cafe Oto. When this opened 20 years ago, I just thought, it's not sustainable. And then the economics of London changed in such a way that the audience for this kind of music were driven east. It has a kind of adventurous and experimental programming done on a micro budget that any publicly funded venue would be proud of. And it's got a really good vinyl selection in there, but it isn't part of the protection racket that is Dig East, so I'm not going to promote it. But it's really like transformative place. I'm so lucky to live near it. What a great place Hackney is. Come for a day, stay for a year, or something. We've now been cycling around East London for 3.5 hours. If you're an American watching this, you'll notice we're alive. We've not been shot in the face. Right, let's go to Recycle Records. Okay, this inauspicious Hackney backstreet is the home of Recycle Vinyl, which is way out of my comfort zone. The sign says, men and women's retro sports fashion, dance music, vinyl records bought and sold. This is not my world, and yet I'm oddly fascinated by this shop because they buy masses and masses of dance music from Japan, and so sometimes this stuff that isn't dance music gets kind of caught up like bycatch of a massive trawler, and you can find really interesting weird things that they don't really know that they've got. Okay, the first time I came in here, I couldn't really understand what it was because it was downstairs and there was a bar. Then there was I've never been to a record shop like this. There was young guys sitting on these aircraft seats listening to unmarked vinyl on headphones, and at the back there was a dance floor with decks, and I said to the woman, what's that for? And she said, it's for people to DJ. And she said to me, you can DJ now if you want with your records. But there wasn't anyone there, and then I realised I was supposed to sort of DJ to practice with what I'd bought. That's kind of what this is, isn't it? Box sets of tapes of really hardcore rave music. I mean, it's what an amazing historical artefact. Okay, this sort of nominally sounds kind of like dance music, but these are both on this great label, Castles in Space. Kind of sounds like what we thought the future would sound like when I was a kid, but it didn't end up sounding like that. It's like when we thought the future was going to be kind of positive and smooth, but it ended up being a dystopia owned by Palantir. The kind of sounds that they have on Castles in Space kind of make me nostalgic for a future that never existed and sad that it didn't come into being. This shop, right, if you go online and look through their catalogue of what they've got, it's kind of amazing. It's a weird sort of treasure trove, and the experience of coming in here keeps me young. Right, we're just making a little stop here on the way to the next record shop, which is Jelly. Now, this doesn't look like much, but it's the Shacklewell Arms, and this is one of the great London music venues. The back room of here has seen incredible things. Look at all this stuff that's on this month. None of which I've heard of, which is how it should be. I'm 58, it shouldn't be for me, it's for the kids. Okay, the loudest gig I saw here was a double header of Anthroprof, who was a spin-off from The Heads, and Gnod, right? And I really like both those bands, but every time I see them I have to leave because it hurts my ears too much. And the best thing I've seen, I was walking along once and I saw a poster saying that the Zeros were playing at the Shacklewell Arms, and I thought, surely it can't be 1970s Hispanic California punk pioneers, those Zeros. And it was those actual fucking Zeros were playing in the back of this pub, and they was the original lineup, and they did all the hits. It was fantastic. About 10 years ago. This is a nice red vinyl copy of the Zeros on Bomp Records, a great California label. The Zeros at the Shacklewell Arms. Wonders never cease. We're on our way still to the next record shop stop by the train up there. This is 3 Bodney Road in Hackney. Tone Records is just down there, which is a great place. And a lot of this album was recorded in that house. This is an album of outtakes and demos by Epic Soundtracks, who was a drummer in the Birmingham punk band Swell Maps and in the Crime in the City Solution, an Australian sort of post-punk supergroup. And Epic rediscovered the sort of symphonic pop classicism of Brian Wilson or Big Star's Third at a time when no one else was interested in that. Died young. This is a great collection of outtakes. I did the sleeve notes, and a really good bit of rock trivia is I used to deliver his parents' newspaper in the late 70s, early 80s, and that's where it was done, in that house. In the 1980s, early 90s, Epic Soundtrack. We're at 359 Amherst Road in Stoke Newington, and 359 Amherst Road, Stoke Newington, is the reason why Hawkwind aren't a household name. If you've got a relative who's not a massive music fan, they know Hawkwind as a one-hit wonder of Silver Machine fame. Silver Machine was the Notting Hill space rock band's unexpected 1972 hit, and they were all poised for a follow-up. And in 1972, this house was the HQ of the Angry Brigade, who were a British Baader-Meinhof-style left-wing terror group who believed that the hippie dream hadn't fulfilled its promise and it was time for some direct action. So they would bomb things like banks or soft targets, aiming not to hurt anyone but just cause a lot of inconvenience. In fact, they bombed a Barclays Bank, which is now the Stoke Newington bookshop, about a minute's walk that way, misunderstanding the first rule of domestic terror: don't shit where you eat, okay? And then the 8 of them were arrested and they became known as the Stoke Newington 8, and Hawkwind used to do benefits for them, right? And then they wrote a song about what they thought about the Angry Brigade called Urban Guerrilla. The lyrics are, I'm an urban guerrilla, I've got bombs in my cellar. Let's not talk about love and flowers and things that don't explode. We used up all of our magic powers trying to do it in the road, right? So Hawkwind, like the Angry Brigade, was saying this hippie approach hasn't worked out. So they planned to release Urban Guerrilla, which was a pretty catchy number. It was the follow-up single to Silver Machine. But then the IRA inconveniently began their first major campaign of mainland bombings. And suddenly it didn't seem like such a good idea to have a single in the charts celebrating bombings. So the sides were flipped. Brainbox Pollution became the A-side. The BBC wouldn't play it, who, you know, basically had a stranglehold over rock music playing those days. And it sank without a trace. And that was the point where if Hawkwind had become like Yes or Genesis or one of those massive groups from that era, that would have been the moment it happened. But it didn't happen, and all because of that house, 359 Amherst Road. And I noticed rather disturbingly, there's a Hackney Labour poster in the window, we know, from the far left. This is a beautiful gatefold edition of a Hawkwind compilation album from a couple of years after the single should have hit the charts. There it is, Urban Guerilla, track 1, side 2 on Roadhawks. And that was the nearest it got to being well known. Okay, we've made another stop. This is 7 Farley Road, which was the home of Elton Dean from Soft Machine, a great jazzy prog band. This is my favourite Soft Machine album. It's a double album of Peel sessions. Elton Dean's playing sax on the last of the 2 discs. It's got the best Soft Machine recording on it, which is the John Peel session version of Moon in June, which was recorded at Maida Vale, and the song is about recording the song at Maida Vale. Anyway, Elton Dean lived here, so he was in Soft Machine, but he was also in Bluesology with Long John Baldry, as was the pianist Reg Dwight. And Reg Dwight left Bluesology with a little bit of Elton Dean's name and a little bit of Long John Baldry's name, and he called himself Elton John, and the rest is history. So without Elton Dean living here, Elton John would have been called Reg Dwight and no one would ever have heard of him. This was another stop we didn't plan. At the top end of Fowlden Road, Alfie reminded me there's TRC, Total Refreshment Centre, right? That is a gig, okay? I think when I moved to London, I thought this is what it was going to be like, these mysterious little places. So you have to go up there, you have to be quiet so as not to annoy the neighbours. The music here is slightly too sophisticated for me. I come here, but I feel I probably shouldn't be here. The DJs that they have on are brilliant. I saw Iko Sherry here recently, French sort of electropop artist, I suppose. But going in there feels like a real adventure. And I mean, you just never imagine it, would you? It's brilliant, isn't it? We've come 10 doors down from the Angry Brigade house, which ruined Hawkwind's career, to a house associated with another Notting Hill psychedelic era artist. I'm going to tell you about it. This is 333 Amherst Road. Comedian and comedy actor Sam Coster was born here, who became famous in the post-war era for being in shows like It's That Man Again. But more importantly, he was the father of David Coster, who was a guitarist in The Trees, one of the great lost acid folk bands. If they'd carried on, they'd be remembered like Fairport Convention or Pentangle. His father was from here. Their second album, On the Shore, is one of my top 20 of all time. And I did the sleeve notes for this box set reissue, On Fire. What an amazing thought. 2 of my favourite groups uniquely connected to this stretch of road. David Coster went on to be a graphic designer after he left Trees, most famously doing the cover of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road by Elton John, who you'll remember stole his name from a man who lived about 100 yards that way. Isn't Hackney amazing? We're making another little stop off 240 Amherst Road. This, what's now apartments, in the 60s and 70s, this was a club called Phoebes, which was a Jamaican club. Roy Shirley, Gar and Blue Beat singer, came over from Jamaica, took it over, performed there all the time. There's an amazing bit of footage of him on the internet from 1976 in a programme called Aquarius performing here. The house band were Black Slate, British reggae band, who did what a lot of British reggae bands tried to do, which is they tried to work out as a live entity a Jamaican music that had really been a studio construct. So what they did was really incredibly innovative. The legend goes that the top floor would be Roy Shirley singing nice songs, And the bottom floor, the basement, would be Jar Shaka doing heavy dub, and in the middle, loads of guys playing dominoes and hanging out. In that period, this street was very much the front line of the conflict between the police and the local community. A lot of these shops were fronts for drug dealing. What was Britain's most notoriously corrupt police station would sort of control the profit and the flow of drugs. Here's Roy Shirley here, back when he was still in Jamaica, on the back of this rather marvellous compilation, Reggae Power. This was before he took over this venue. And after it was Phoebes, this became Trends, which was a big deal for the early days of the house music. And before it was Phoebes, this was the Cray's Regency Club, one of the Cray twins' first ventures into nightclub management. You can find photos of them standing here outside this very door. Princess Margaret probably went here, Lord Boothby. Maybe that's where the Crays got the compromat on him that meant he tried to keep him out of jail. And local history has it that if the Crays invited you to meet them at that pub there, the Hand of Glory, you were all right. But if they arranged to meet you here in the back room, then the Nutcrackers might be coming out. What a fantastic bit of history. We're on Cladding Terrace now. Just here is Evering Road, where the Crays stabbed Jack the Hat McVitie to death so badly his liver fell out. But more benign things happened here. It seems to have disappeared now, but 9 Cladding Terrace was where Jowhead from Birmingham post-punk band The Swell Maps lived. And he ran a label from here. Hollow Earth Records from 9 Cladding Terrace here. Put out his own records by his bands, the Palookas, the House Hunters, all of them with the 9 Cladding Road address on it. And it speaks of a weird, better time where you would actually just have the address of your house on your record would be the contact place. I had some friends who ran a label called Day Release in Stockwell, and they were in a band called Delicate AWOL, and they had their home address on their records, and they realised that when looking at an old Henry Cow album, that Henry Cow had run their label out of the same address 20 years previously. Like some kind of weird house where different generations of people have to move in and perform complex art rock until they're replaced by a younger generation. But even more brilliantly, before Jowhead lived here, running Hollow Earth Records, it was the home of Bad Manners, who we encountered earlier at Flashback East. 5.5 hours ago now, and yet look, even though Jack the Hat McVitie was stabbed there, we've been out and about in East London, despite everything Elon Musk says, for 5.5 hours. We're still alive. We're still alive, and we're waving an $11.99 copy of the first Bad Manners album, which was they were probably living in here when they sang Ni 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 Na 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 Nu Nu. We're going to an extremely important site of almost religious significance in the history of British experimental jazz. This is 14 Downs Road, Hackney. This was the home of Derek Bailey, British free improvisation guitarist who could lay claim to having sort of co-invented that music. He ran a record label from here called Incus, initially with Evan Parker, who's still alive and playing brilliantly. I went here a number of times to meet Derek. I answered questions on Derek on Celebrity Mastermind, and I won.
Which Dutch drummer played with Bailey and Parker on the topography of the lungs?
Han Benning.
Absolutely right. No passes, 17 points.
And I beat John Thompson from The Fast Show, whose specialist subject was James Bond villains. And I would also have beaten John Thompson from The Fast Show if I'd done his round. Because I was getting questions like, which Japanese jazz duo collaborated with Derek Bailey on the album Saisoro? And John Thompson was getting, what colour was Blofeld's cat? Knowing Derek's music changed my whole approach to writing and performing, changed my life, inspired me enormously. Luckily, we've met the man who lives here, and he's going to let us in to the headquarters of the British legendary independent experimental jazz label Incus. Hello, Ed. Let us in, as previously arranged. He was supposed to wait by the door. You're supposed to wait by the door. Where'd you 1 miles away? Right, come on in then. The first time I came here was in 1996. He had a practice room that had nothing in it and was all just painted completely white. When drum and bass was kicking off on the pirate radio stations here, he used to tune into it, not really knowing what it was, and practice along to it. And then he made these amazing tapes that Tim found. You can get the original ones that would have been recorded in this house on Bandcamp now. We've got a copy of Biosystem here by the Spontaneous Music Ensemble. Not impossible to find, but not an everyday occurrence.
I think this was some doodles for some of the album artwork.
That's that, isn't it?
Well, I assumed it was.
Yeah, what an incredible thing to find. Can I have some of these sleeves? Around the end of the 80s, start of the 90s, this American band Sonic Youth, they started collaborating with people from the British improvisation circuit and made an album called 13 Ghosts with Derek Bailey, and that started me listening to Derek Bailey. Then I heard the drum and bass album in about 95. But you can't listen to it every day. It makes all other music seem quite stupid afterwards, momentarily. It's kind of pointless effort that's gone into constructing ultimately facile things. A lot of what he did, I think, had a sense of humour about it as well, like a put on. Like I was here once, he suddenly said, "Do you buy my records?" And I went, "Yeah." And he went, "What do you do with them?" We're on the Chatsworth Road in Hackney, and this is the penultimate stop in record shop terms of today's trip around record shops of East London, and it's Jelly Records. It's only a little shop, but you never know what you're going to find. There's all sorts of fascinating things in here usually. Let's go and have a look. This is a weird Romanian bloke who did strange electronica. That's the band of Robert Lloyd, whose house at the Chinese restaurant we saw earlier on. Life creates a narrative, even when you're not expecting it to. Okay, so I've got to cheat now. I have to check on my Discogs whether I've got, because I like Doll by Doll, but I don't know if I've got that. So I have this portable memory. This is fantastic. For under £25, right? This band, Titus Grown, were like a proggy band that had a bit of an acid folk sort of vibe. They made one album, and then somebody's obviously dug up some extra tracks and put them all on this 12-inch, which is just fantastic. This is remixes of Yola Tango by the most inappropriate people. I mean, De La Soul and Pete Rock and Superstar Dave. It's really exciting to think what they will have made of Yola Tango's very New Yorky kind of music. This is vinyl of a group called Mice Parade that were sort of in the Tortoise era of post-rock. I think it probably only came out on CD at the time. This was $2.99, so it's really worth a punt. Roger Doyle, this is a repress, but a friend of mine, Jennifer Walsh, who's an Irish conceptual artist, made a sort of album based on the idea of the Irish avant-garde, maintaining that there never was an Irish avant-garde, and she tried to imagine what an Irish avant-garde would have been like had it existed. But there was an Irish avant-garde. There was only one bloke, admittedly, and it was Roger Doyle, and this is his album from 1971 of tape loops. Peter Hamill from Van der Graaf Generator. This is from his sort of pre-punk era that apparently inspired John Lydon. And I've never heard this one, but you can't go wrong with the Peter Hamill solo album, particularly when it's $2.99. But this has been, you never know what you're going to get at Jelly. It's been a really good little haul. The next stop is a historic one, and then we're down to Rook, which is bloody miles away in Hackney Wick, but it means the final push of the day will be, it will have the air of an epic quest about it. So this is the last of our history stops in between the record shops. We're filming this on the 30th of April 2026. 38 years ago, here in Victoria Park, Hackney, was Rock Against Racism's Carnival Against Racism. Rock Against Racism was formed because 2 years earlier, Eric Clapton, the white blues musician, had gone on stage in Birmingham and said that Enoch Powell was right, used the C word, used the W word, and said we needed to kick the black people out of Britain, which sat uneasily with a lot of people. And it was a kind of galvanising moment for the punk movement, really, where different cultures from reggae and punk, black music and white music came together and played here. Of course, I was 8 years old, I wasn't here. It must have been an amazing thing, quite a significant moment. Here's some records by some of the bands that played on the day. This is an old copy of The Clash's Sandinista of mine. This I bought when people were getting rid of their vinyl rather than trying to buy it back. $2.50 from the Record and Tape Exchange, damaged in a beautiful way with what we call severe ring wear, and I don't mind that at all on a Clash record. This is my copy of Steel Pulse's Handsworth Revolution, which I bought when I was a kid. It's a superb record, and it's a lovely gatefold of mine from when I was a kid. They were on the bill, still going today. This is a reissue of X-Ray Specs Germ-Free Adolescence. I never got the original, but I wanted to have it on vinyl because it's such a great record, and what a brilliant role model polystyrene was. That's a nice edition of that. This is great. This is mine from when I was younger. I think it's a massively underrated album, the Tom Robinson Band album, because people think of him as a sort of a DJ or something today. This is political songwriting at its best, and they were all really catchy tunes as well. And look what I've managed to preserve for over 40 years. The bespoke graffiti stencil. I'm such a nerd, even as a child. I haven't popped out the thing, and the idea is you pop out the things and then you could, oh no, it's nearly broken. Oh God, it's come apart in the wind. And Patrick Fitzgerald, the poet, played as well. Here in Victoria Park, 38 years ago today, Rock Against Racism's Carnival Against Racism. That's the last bit of factual information. We're heading off to Rook, but before we do that, I'm going to eat this bacon ciabatta sandwich, which I made this morning. Alfie, who's doing the filming, didn't think to prepare. If you're doing this trip like us around the record shops of Hackney, bring a flask of coffee, make sure you take a cagoule in case it rains, maybe a packed lunch.